Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Gorilla Sports Off Ice. We got a great show for you today. Want to first remind you guys about our great friends over at Trusted American Mortgage. Go to trustedamerican.com right now. They want to help you lower your interest rate and get a better monthly payment. Go to trustedamerican.com to see how much money they can help you save today. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hello, welcome in Gorilla Sports Off Ice Friday afternoon, and he's back by overwhelming demand on the set. It's JJ Jerez.
Raising the roof.
God, it's great to see you, JJ.
It's great to see you, and it's great to be back in this studio. 5.5 months, 4.5 months, something like that since I've been in here. Feel a little rusty, a little bit nervous like I used to, but I mean, this has been such a big part of my life, covering the Avalanche and doing shows like this for the people. You know, I did it for 11 years, just stopping. Didn't feel right.
Nope.
I felt like a piece of me was missing. It's good to be back in here with you and catching up on some stuff.
Well, and we got to see you on the day of the Miko Rantanen trade. Ryan Bolding and all them were jumping in the chat going, "Oh my gosh, this is a big enough deal. You got JJ to come back on the show." It felt like a good time to have you back in here, JJ. So we've missed you around the studio.
Well, I've missed you, and I missed interacting with all the fine listeners that pay attention to us for one reason or another. Sometimes I'm like, what? Why are they even paying attention to us?
It's because
a bunch of idiots.
It's because of you. You're the reason. We got 16 games to go for the Avs season. The roster looks very different than the last time you were in the studio.
Does it ever?
We'll talk a little bit about that. I want to get your take on it. Just kind of what the Avs have been able to do. And kind of, where it all landed that night when they traded Miko Rantanen. You and I were talking of, let's wait to see. Let's wait to see what they do with everything, where all the moves, kind of finalize before we judge this too harshly. Carolina ends up with some egg on their face in that whole situation. We'll talk about all that. And then we also are going to talk a little bit about Nathan McKinnon. I was making the argument the other day in the office. I said, I just don't think that the voters are going to give him MVP second year in a row. Well, some voting came out today and it's obviously just early voting, people, kind of making some predictions that would show he's pretty far in the lead. So we'll talk about all that. But the Avs are playing against the Flames tonight. So it should be a fun one, some playoff implications for the Flames. But JJ, I guess, let me just ask you, with how different it is, how different the roster looks, how do you feel about where the Avs have settled everything? And we've got, 3 games seeing this new look group?
Yeah, I think when the Miko Rantanen trade first happened, we all kind of got in our feels, and just it was a shock to us and to Miko Rantanen, apparently, according to reports. And then you see the trade deadline happen, and I kind of felt more of the same. To me, in my point of view, it looked like Chris McFarland was fighting for his job. And a big reason for that, you really look at a lot of the moves he made, a lot of the moves he's made in the last year. A lot of those are moves undoing old moves, right? Especially this trade deadline, getting Casey Middlestat out of here after only a year. A lot of those depth moves they just seem to be erasing mistakes, right? And it's now that the dust has settled and you take a step back, you look at what the Avalanche have done in the last several games, and you're like, all right, they built a better team. Let's be honest about that. The team that they have right now is better, but it'd be nice to see some guys stick. You even look back to the roster that they finished last season with the playoffs. I mean, Duhaime, Trenin, Parise, we knew wasn't going to stick,
right.
But a lot of guys that come in, quickly go out. Come in, quickly go out. We saw that. You look at the roster from opening night here, half of it's gone.
Yeah.
Even the Parsonen move. Wow, he got 5 minutes, and it's like, all right, never mind. That was another mistake. So it just felt like, from my perspective, that Chris McFarland was really trying to do a lot of moves that were backpedaling from past moves. But right now, as the team stands, it's way more equipped to make a run. just down the middle. You can't argue that that's just a much healthier looking lineup.
Yep.
Not literally healthy, but just
you
love to see it, because what was a third line a couple months ago is now a fourth line. And that third line, I think, is really where you can say that's going to be the difference maker, because that's an adequate third line. That third line can definitely make some noise, cause a little bit of havoc, and just overall bring more depth. And I think that's what it was about. Credit to Chris McFarland for taking an honest look at himself and an honest look at his past moves and saying, like, all right, I kind of messed a couple of these up. Let's clean them up before the big dogs start pointing the finger at me for failed playoff runs. So I like where the team's at. I don't love it just because of, I guess, my own personal attachment to a guy like Miko Rantanen. I've covered him since his rookie year, even before that, right? The 9 games he got that first year under Patrick Waugh wasn't even technically his rookie year, but I remember covering him from there. He's always a really awesome guy to us. Yeah, you and I have the inside joke that he's our close personal friend because one time he said hello to us in the parking lot. But that's genuinely kind of how I feel. So like, there's still a part of me that stings that the Miko Rantanen trade or Miko Rantanen signing didn't work out here, but they did an awesome job of replacing him. Maybe doesn't have the swagger, the personality that we're used to from Miko Rantanen, but as far as production and on ice where it really matters, you could even say it was a bit of an improvement.
I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting Marty Netjes to look this good next to Nathan McKinnon. Their play style just seemed to fit so well here. But I want to go back to something you said there at the beginning, because I agree with you. I think there's something that we'd even talked about on the night of the trade of like, all right, when you make a trade like this, you're officially managing this team for your job. Every move that you make from here on out for Chris McFarland after the Miko deal, it's like you have to find a way to make this work out right. You just traded a cornerstone, an elite player in the league, a type of player that does not get traded. You just moved him because you think that you've got a vision that you can put together a more complete team by freeing yourself up from that contract and using that piece to get multiple assets back in, which I think not only Marty Netjes, you're pretty happy with Jack Drury right now as well. So no, I think you're right. I think he was making moves like, yeah, my job's on the line a little bit here. And yeah, I'm with you. I think he did a pretty good job given the circumstance. And I like the aggressiveness going back to last season of saying, hey, look, we made a move that didn't work out, but I'm not going to be too prideful about guys that I brought in. Ryan Johansson, Tomas Tatar from last year. Like, no, if they didn't work, we're getting them out of here and replacing them. I appreciate the aggressiveness of recognizing that mistake, but I think the point maybe you're making is like, hey, fewer mistakes first time around that we have to redo later.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm saying, but you're right. They are honest and they look at things in a vacuum. They leave emotion aside. I remember earlier in the season when I was at the morning skate against the New York Islanders, Patrick Waugh was in town. That's definitely the one it was. And I'm sitting there watching morning skate, and I looked behind me at Arif, and I'm like, this team kind of sucks. And Arif agrees with me, and, we're just talking about that. And then they went on that night to lose 6-2, I think it was, to the Islanders, which is not a good team.
In like a bad game, too. Like, they played really poorly.
Right. So again, I think that's a good thing that the front office can take a step back and be like, you know what? This team kind of sucks.
Yeah.
We got to make some moves if we want to make any sort of noise in the playoffs. Chris McFarland says, if we get bounced first round again, there's a good chance the finger's going to get pointed at me. There's a good chance that my job is in jeopardy. So I don't want to do that. As much as I love Miko Rantanen, the person, I need to look out for number one, and that's me and my job that I love. So let's make some things happen.
Well, not only imagine the scenario where he gets bounced, where the Avs get bounced in the first round, and then Miko walks for nothing. Like that would have been some real anger within the fan base. So again, yeah, I'm with you. I applaud him. I think it takes a big set to do what he did, to take that chance, and now it's on the team and the players and the guys that he brought in and the coaches to go make it happen. I think Chris did a pretty good job.
We're hearing so many different reports about who said what and how it all shook out with Miko Rantanen. I question whether Miko Rantanen would have actually walked or just been like, fine, I'll take the lower number, just stay here because this is where I want to be. And it was all kind of a facade from his camp.
Dude, I'm and look, I don't know everything that happens behind the scenes there. A lot of people have tried to get in touch with Miko's camp to get some more specifics, and they're not wanting to say a lot right now. I thought for sure we were going to see an agent change. From what I know, folks I've talked to, it sounds like there was a bit of a disconnect between what Miko wanted and how aggressively the agent was trying to play this.
But it's like Chris McFarland, you're closer to Miko. You can see him every single day. At training camp, Miko Rantanen said, I have no part of the negotiations. I'm letting my agent handle it. Oh, yeah, I want to stay here, but I'm just focusing on playing hockey. They can all deal with that. Wouldn't it be nice to just have Chris McFarland pull Miko Rantanen into a room one-on-one and be like, this is what your agent's saying. Can you tell me how you are really feeling? Like, let's open some communication here directly. I know that's not how it's supposed to be done. And if the agent caught wind of that, he might be a little upset, but like, you know, there was a lot of people's feelings on the line. I don't think the players necessarily loved getting rid of Miko Rantanen, but at the end of the day, they have to say, well, it's a business. I think Nathan McKinnon even said something really great the other day. Like, I play against my friends all the time.
Yeah.
When he was asked about Miko Rantanen coming back this weekend. So I think, at first the emotion kind of took the best of me, everyone, you, a lot of the fans, maybe even a lot of players. But now you just got to keep moving forward. Nobody's career has come to an end. Everybody's got to keep playing, and everybody's going to keep making the best of the situation.
So the little bit of a side tangent here. The Nate saying he plays against his friends. You listened to the Gabe Landeskog Spittin' Chicklets podcast, right? I thought it was interesting how he said, we're all going to go out to dinner on Saturday. And we're going to air it all out.
Air it all out. That was a very interesting word choice to me. Like, to be a fly on the wall of that table. Seriously. Is there going to be somebody yelling like, no, Miko, this is what you should have done? Or Miko yelling back like, I tried that. They didn't listen to me. Yeah,
dude, I think if Miko could do it over, I think this would all play out very differently.
Agreed.
I think this would all play out very differently. But I thought air it all out was a really and again, maybe we're over dissecting, but I thought that was an interesting choice of words.
Well, another interesting choice of words there was Gabe Landeskog calling him his little brother.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Not a friend.
And he said little Finnish brother.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that felt like an extra little dig. A further side quest here. Let's talk about Gabe Landeskog real quick. This wasn't originally on the rundown. The documentary's coming out, 5-part documentary. You and I saw it being filmed over the last year. I didn't know if it was being used in the ESPN footage or what, but we've seen this going on now for the last year.
We all kind of thought it was just an NHL documentary.
Right. I did not realize this was a 5-part Gabe Landeskog documentary. So that's now in the process of being released. He then goes on Altitude and does a live sit down. He sat down with Peter Baugh from The Athletic and did a long interview. Then he goes on Spittin' Chicklets. Do you read anything into this?
Absolutely, I do.
You do?
I don't think any of this happens if there's not a plan to come back. If he's not feeling good about coming back, I don't think they make a big deal about his road to recovery if there is not going to be a recovery. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and see, I always assumed that when we saw them filming that the documentary would eventually end with either his return to the ice or him, the press conference saying, I gave it everything I can. I'm hanging him up. But I do find it really interesting that for the better part of 2 years, it's been radio silence, near impossible to get any information on it. Little tidbits here and there where we can talk to Jared or a small little bit from Gabe or C-Mac. And now suddenly there's been this like press junket all surrounding this real deep dive look into his rehab. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's all the timing of it's all really interesting.
Agreed. And in that Spittin' Chicklets interview, he touches on how this is something he really, really wants to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of other players would have walked away by now. A lot of players, he even said, I've got plenty of money to survive the rest of my life. It's not about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's about proving to myself, proving to my kids that I fought for this. So who knows, maybe he comes out, plays one game, and he's like, yeah, I came back, didn't I?
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
I'm out. That would be really tragic, but that doesn't seem like his mindset. He genuinely wants to come back, make an impact for a few more years, and do what he loves. I mean, every player that retires, that's their first thing they say. I miss the room. I miss the boys. So I think he just wants to experience that again and not have it be cut short, because if 2022 is Gabe Landeskog's last game, his career's ending prematurely. If he can ride this out until literally he can't do it anymore, a la Peter Forsberg.
Yeah.
Look how long it took Peter Forsberg to retire.
Well,
cut from the same cloth too.
Let me take it one little step further here with because I agree with you. I think this is all too coincidental for it to just be, oh, we're wanting to promote the documentary.
Yeah.
When I look at this Avs lineup on trade deadline day, as we were getting closer to 1, I told Megan, I told Chloe, I said, I think I want one more bottom 6 piece here to really feel good. Yoel Kiviranta has 15 goals on the season.
I knew you were going to bring him up.
He has 15 goals on the season.
Yeah.
No complaints with that. I don't care how they're coming. You got 15 goals. But I did say, I said, I would feel a lot better with him slid down on that 4th line.
He's the sore thumb on that 3rd line
Right.
that kind of sticks out as like,
Yeah. And again, 15 goals, whatever. But as I looked at it, I said, man, I'd really like just one more. So I don't know. Did they leave a bottom 6 spot open intentionally?
Yeah.
That combined with everything that we've seen for all this media, all the press, and now the documentary, and there's 5-part documentary coming out week by week. I'm not a mathematician, but that lines up pretty close with the first round of the playoffs.
That's kind of my thought exactly. Like once that 5th episode drops, he plays the next night.
I don't know. It's all just really interesting.
Yeah, it's drama that maybe can only be scripted in movies, but sometimes in sports we always say you can't even script this in a movie.
Yeah, right.
Right. So perhaps it's one of those.
You couldn't write this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about. We might as well finish the old 3-headed monster line here and talk about Nathan McKinnon, Hart Trophy. Look, I think he has been the best player in the league this year. Every time that we think we've seen the best of Nathan McKinnon, it just seems like he takes it to another level. Shit, he got 1,000 points twice. You know what I mean? Like he does it all. Hart Trophy. Do you think? I've been making the argument the last couple weeks. I don't know if the PHWA voters are going to give it to a guy from Colorado 2 years in a row. But I thought you made a really interesting argument a minute ago before we started.
Yeah, we think a lot of times we blame him playing in Colorado for not having the attention that he deserves. But this year there was a different situation that had all eyes on him, and that was the Four Nations tournament. All the Canadian media right now is just in love with Nathan McKinnon. Did you see the Hockey Night in Canada interview that he did the other night?
I was in the background of it.
Yeah, but did you see it?
Oh, I did. Yes.
In that, before it wraps up, I forget the guy's name, the guy that used to do it with Don Cherry.
Oh, not Scott Oak, because that's who normally does Hockey Night in Canada.
Right. Just the host that used to be with Don Cherry. I forget it. Who cares?
Ron McLean.
Ron McLean, just before that interview wraps up, Ron McCain's like, thank you so much for what you did for Canada. Like they genuinely view him as a saint right now.
Yeah.
Because of his play getting them that pretend trophy. So I think because of that, his stock is at an all-time high in Canadians' eyes. And that's what we're always worried about, right? Oh, the Canadians that don't, that live on the East Coast, that don't have the time to watch what he does on a night-to-night basis, they're the ones that are going to screw his voting. But right now, those guys are on his side, and
well, and
pumping his tires.
I need to go. I need to go through my bookmarks to see if I can find it. But there was a podcast the other day it was one of the big national ones. I don't remember if it was Daily Face Off or The Sheet, Jeff Merrick, Spit and Shit. It was one of the big ones that was saying, look, I know we're all talking about McDavid. I know, and McDavid's amazing, but it was not a Colorado podcast that was saying, are we not talking about Nate as maybe being the best player in the world right now? Is he maybe number 1 above Connor McDavid right now? So you might be right, dude. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit to how much Nate's been able to put his game on display this year.
And like we just said, the team was somewhat dog shit at the beginning of the year. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Apparently,
No,
like we just said, the front office said this team's a little bit dog
Chris
shit this year.
McFarland basically said that in his media availability after the Miko deal.
And even with that, McKinnon's still throwing up the points that he's putting up, as if it were the 2022 team.
Yep.
He's still producing at the rate that we're used to, even with lacking some support. So I think that alone right there should raise some eyebrows and be like, wow, he was able to put up 1,000 points this early in the season with some of those guys on the rest of the team. It says a lot.
It's my same argument. We don't need to get into this. It's my argument for why I thought it was crazy that Jared Bednar wasn't even mentioned in the top 5 of Jack Adams vote getters for the exact reason that you just said.
Well, and what a challenge they have right now, right? The jumbling of a team so late in the season. I think I counted this morning 7 new guys from the time I stopped or took a break from covering the team. November 1st was when I took a break. Some guys have come in and have already been shipped out.
Yeah.
Of the guys that have stayed and are on the active roster, 7 new guys. That's not easy to just put together.
Are you sure it's not 9? When I went through and counted, I thought it was 9.
Well, I think if you exclude some of the scratches or guys that went to the AHL, I think it's like the
that's
roster,
a lot.
Yeah, of the roster that Daily Faceoff has up right now.
Is that counting the goalies?
Yes.
Okay.
But either way, 7, 9.
Right, a lot.
That's a challenge to just get guys on the same page and be a formidable team. So if Jared Bednar can pull this off, he definitely deserves a serious nod, if not just a nomination at the Jack Adams, because keeping this team elite while going through all the speed bumps that they've been experiencing this year, it's a feat.
Yeah, it's been impressive. Well, and with all the roster change, I'd love your thoughts on what we heard from Nate the other night after all, or I guess it was during the day, after all the trades and the dust is settled and Charlie Coyle's here and Brock Nelson's here and you bring EJ back and all that. And Nate goes, I love it. I don't think you can win with young players.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. And it's, it's one of those things that we talk about all the time with Nate, where part of the reason why, we all laugh when he gets a little prickly in the locker room and stuff like that, it's like, he's such a great quote. He always has something to say and he's always super honest. And, dude, like you and I talk about this all the time. I agree with him. I think you have to have a really special young player in a certain role to be able to get there. Like Alex Newhook was a frequent scratch on the 2022 Cup run. Him and Burakovsky were guys that were kind of coming in and out. Yeah, you had Bowen Byram on the back end, but and he played really well. But you also had Kale and Taves and Josh Manson, Sam Girard to help. I guess Girard got hurt, but to help insulate that. And you look at recent winners; these are veteran teams, big, strong. While still being able to play fast, fill the net. I thought that was interesting to hear an NHL player say, yeah, you can't have the kids in here if you want to win.
Yeah. And they also brought up a couple times how they're looking to play a little bit differently than normal. And I think the way they want to play, Jared Bednar already has a super high bar for effort level.
Yeah.
To play in Jared Bednar's system, you cannot take a single second off. And maybe the younger player doesn't have that grasp yet. A veteran, a guy who's been around a while, who's seen many different styles of play, whether he played in them or against them, kind of gets what it takes to play the Jared Bednar system, especially if they're trying to tweak it a little bit right now. So I think, to have the more veteran presence, we've been talking about it all year. Cogliano getting out of this roster left a huge gap.
Huge.
I think they've filled it since then, but not just veteran presence, but hockey IQ, penalty kill knowledge. Look at the penalty kill. It's been revamped since the beginning of the season. A lot of these guys that they brought in, they were able to just pop into PK1 or PK2. So there's intangibles in the game that a veteran just understands a little bit better. And I think to fit their system, and especially if they're changing it a little bit, the veterans are going to be a better fit.
They're going to acclimate more quickly. And then I do also think that bringing Eric Johnson back was really smart just because of the stuff that you've lost in Andrew Cogliano, Gabe Landeskog. Nate said the other night, I don't know how much he's going to play, but he's going to be great in the room. And I think that's what you brought him back for.
Yeah, and ever since he left, you could just tell he didn't want to be anywhere else. I think. Did you get to see that video from, the Philadelphia media guy that would do his
on the bench
morning skate hits, and Eric Johnson's just messing with him? Like, that's kind of who Eric Johnson has been since he left the Avalanche. Just kind of like, I'm just gonna do whatever. I'm just happy to get paid and
Harmless
still be around.
Yeah.
I think he always wanted to be still in Colorado, and so just to bring him back makes him happy. And that speaks to my point a second ago, how tough it is to get a group of guys to mesh.
Yeah.
If you're bringing this guy and that guy and that guy, and you want it all to work out, but there's no locker room guy, there's no pick up the vibes guy. Vibes are important in hockey.
Huge.
Vibes are important anywhere, in any business, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people out there have worked their jobs, lost their favorite coworker, and they're like, well, this is a much different job.
Yeah, this job sucks now.
Yeah. So I think if you're trying to get a group of guys to gel and mesh quickly, you need a guy like Eric Johnson.
Yeah.
You need somebody who's going to be able to crack jokes and keep the mood light,
Well, when Nate scores 1,000, gets his 1,000th point the other night, gets called back, and they score again, the first person over the boards was Eric Johnson, wanting to lead the charge of like, no, we're going back out. Like, I know we already rushed him and it got called back. This one's going to count. We're all going back out here. And like, yeah, he's been back here for 2-3 days. There's a lot of that locker room that he doesn't know, but he gets to jump right back in and immediately start being the glue again of feeling good. And, I don't know if you saw the video in the locker room after. Chloe's probably getting sick of hearing me talk about it. I like, that was like one of the best videos I've seen all year. Nate comes in, they're all pouring water on him. They all start barking at him. It was just great. And Eric Johnson's right in the middle of that. Him and Gabe Landeskog are the first ones to kind of swarm Nate. And yeah, you need that stuff.
It's funny how big of a difference 2 years makes.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I remember when his contract was up, and I'm pretty sure all of us were on the same page. Get this guy out of here. He can't even play anymore. And now that he's back, everybody's like, yes, yeah, he's back. Hell yeah. So like, let's remember the player he was when we were all trying to chase him out of here with torches, and remember what the value he does bring. I mean, I will say he was out there killing penalties, blocking shots. Yeah. Like he's still trying to do everything he can to be a valuable member of the team.
I didn't think he looked bad in that game.
I agree.
I thought he looked like a perfect number 7. And that's, I think that's the other important part of it is like, he's going to be a guy who's all right doing that. And yeah, he's just happy to be here
and giving some guys a little bit of a break.
Right. Know? Well, and I think that's I was making this point to Megan earlier this week. I think that's really important for Sam Malinsky. Like coming out of the Four Nations break, we've seen Sam Malinsky's game start to tick back up after taking a hard, nosedive. And I think it'll be good for him to get some, hey, have a game off here. Hey, we're going to go 11-7 tonight, so your minutes can be a little bit more sheltered. I think that's good for a young player, rookie year, first time with the NHL schedule. I think literally being able to cycle Eric Johnson in 1 out of every 3-4 games, assuming you're staying healthy, is going to help Sam Malinsky stay fresh and be more effective.
It's almost like the backup goalie mindset
that
they're approaching it with.
Yep.
I have a feeling anytime we see Scott Wedgwood, we're also going to see Eric Johnson, because it's going to be, okay, tonight we got a weaker team that we're facing. Let's give some guys a break before the playoffs here. Let's throw in our backup defenseman here.
Yeah.
Like the other night was the perfect example. Chicago Blackhawks in town. Let's let Eric Johnson play that way, because tomorrow we got to play the Wild, and that game we got to make sure we have all horses.
Well, and how
going.
Interesting was that too? How not only was it Eric Johnson and Scott Wedgwood, but Miles Wood comes into the lineup. Logan O'Connor gets a night off. Parker Kelly gets a night off. Jimmy Vesey draws in. That's really interesting. I hadn't, I just kind of made that assumption for that, but I wonder if you're right. If they can stay some semblance of healthy, if they're going to treat the whole lineup on backup goalie night, backup roster night.
I mean, that's been the knock on Jared Bednar,
mm-hmm.
his overuse of some guys. I mean, I'm sure Cale Makar is still going to see 20 some odd minutes, no matter who they're playing against. But it at least gives
Nate's ice time is down just a little, but it's down.
Yeah. I know Val Nichushkin's an exception, but for the last couple of years, bodies fall out of lineup in the playoffs. So why not spend this last stretch of the season getting them rested, letting some guys take the breaks they need, so that way come playoff time, your roster's buzzing at 100%. Because last time we saw the Avalanche roster buzzing at 100%, a cup followed.
Yep. Yeah. There's a banner in the rafters from the last time we saw that. And I do just think that, and we're kind of off the rails here, but I'm enjoying this conversation. I also think Val Nichushkin is so important to that.
And maybe that's another thought. Were all these moves made in a panic because Val Nichushkin hadn't played in a while? It's like, what if they made no moves,
right?
And Val Nichushkin was reinserted in the lineup? What changes?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? It's a hypothetical. We'll never know the answer to that. But we all know how important Val Nichushkin is to the lineup, and the record goes along with it.
I believe 11-0 since he came back.
There you go. So
or with him in the line, or 11-0-1 now.
I just
after
mean
2 nights ago
of all time too.
Oh yes.
Ever since Val Nichushkin joined the team, it's crazy the record that they have with versus without him. So Val Nichushkin's an important piece of this team, no matter what lineup they're drawing out there. But again, the one they have now is definitely more playoff ready,
capable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's 16 games to go until the playoffs get going, including one against Calgary Flames tonight. Calgary looking to climb back into the playoffs, or I guess they're currently sitting in a playoff spot, 1 point up, but the team chasing them, Vancouver, has a game in hand. So Calgary, this is a big, very important game for them. Nazem Kadri, old friend, Stanley Cup champion with the Avs. The Avs have one of the easier schedules down the stretch here.
See, I would argue differently.
But by the way that they rank strength of schedule.
Sure. But like you just pointed out with the Calgary Flames, they're fighting for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. So are a lot of the teams that they're playing from here on out. They're either already in playoff spots or they're those brink teams.
Right on the cusp.
Aside from like maybe the Canadians and the Ducks are really the only easy nights you have. Other than that, everybody you're playing against is either fighting for playoff positioning or fighting to get into the playoffs. So it doesn't feel like there's going to be any easy games just because of that reason. There's that extra little motivation in your opponent to say, hey, yeah, the Avalanche are a good team, but we have to make a run right now. So we're going to throw our best at this team. Remember after the Cup?
Oh, yeah.
How you would get everybody's best nights? I think we're going to see that from here on out, because not only are the Avalanche a good team, but the rest of the league is like, well, shit, this team got good.
Well, and truthfully, and Jared Bednar's talked about this a little bit recently. I like that for them. I think since they won the Cup, and even the year they won the Cup, they kind of were able to flip that switch game one, but they kind of sputtered into the playoffs. The last few seasons, the Avs have been in a comfortable enough spot. They've had the luxury of, you've won to win games, and they have won games coming down the stretch, but you haven't had that like desperation, needing to win, needing to pick up these points, having to bring your A game every night. And they're kind of in that position this year. And I like that for them. And especially to the point that you made earlier of this is a new group, a lot of different pieces, a lot of moving parts versus what we saw earlier in the season. So I like the fact that this team has to kind of immediately, what is today, March 14th, jump right into playoff-like intensity, getting every team's best shot every night, and having to play against teams that are also desperate. The Avs have a nice little cushion for where they sit in the playoffs right now, but you are nowhere near comfortable enough to just let it slide. Other teams are going to be desperate. You're going to have to match that desperation.
And we've learned from years past, Jared Bednar wants home ice.
Yep.
Right now, they don't have it. So I think that's a huge motive of theirs right now, to just try to get some home ice. And they always have something to play for. The Avalanche never park the bus and say, let's just coast our way into the season. They find ways to keep themselves motivated. They find reasons to keep making every single game matter. And I think right now, home ice advantage is that carrot that they're dangling in front of themselves.
Let me ask you. So let's say you can't get home ice. Right now, the Avs are the playoffs started today, they'd be playing the Dallas Stars going on the road. Would you rather play the Dallas Stars going on the road, round one, or if you slunk back down into that wild card 1 spot and you pulled Vegas, who would you rather play?
Man, I'd rather it be a completely different playoff
Yes,
setup.
That is the correct answer.
That's insane that, 2 of the best teams are facing off right away. Wouldn't you want the best teams being the ones that duke it out at the end? But whatever. That's a conversation that we'll never win, I guess. I guess right now I'd rather see Vegas.
I'm with you. I agree. Yep. I think Dallas is really good. I think there's a lot of emotion there with the Miko stuff. I think
not only the Miko stuff, the Luka Doncic stuff.
Oh,
Miko Rantanen coming into Dallas. I have a buddy, like one of my best friends. He was my roommate in college. He was from Dallas. He moved back to Dallas. I thought he was going to cry when Luka Doncic got traded. Yeah. Like that guy meant a lot to this team or to that city.
Yeah.
So for them to have this glimmer of hope in Miko Rantanen that they don't know that well, especially in Dallas, hockey's not the biggest thing, but I told him right away, get a Miko Rantanen jersey. You won't regret it.
Yeah.
He's an awesome guy. He just signed there for a long time. He's going to be this new guy that the whole city can kind of have some hope. The Dallas Cowboys, they suck.
Yeah.
The Texas Rangers, I think, are pretty decent. So baseball fans have that to hang their hat on.
Opposite season,
but I think the city as a whole, and I think I even heard Elliot Friedman say this, that they needed a guy like Miko Rantanen to come and just lift the overall morale of sports fans in that town. And I think
and I imagine the support that's going to be thrown behind the Stars and Miko on this run because of everything you're talking about. I imagine that's going to be pretty impassioned from the fans to fine, fuck the Mavs. Mm-hmm. We're getting behind the Stars.
Right. Exactly.
I do wonder how Miko handles that being the guy.
I think the one thing that is still up in the air, a lot of people are saying, Miko Rantanen's numbers are just inflated because he skated with Nathan McKinnon for so long. I disagree with that. I personally think Miko Rantanen is an awesome player. He's an amazing goal scorer, and he's extremely gifted on the power play.
Yep.
But we haven't proven one direction or the other.
Right.
So there's a little bit of added pressure on Miko Rantanen to prove I don't need Nathan McKinnon to still be great.
Yeah.
Will his numbers dip? We'll see.
And I mean, I think it's also one of those things where, let's say the numbers did dip a little. I don't know whatever a little means in your mind. Let's say that, I think that's fine. Yeah, I imagine any player, Connor McDavid's numbers would go up playing next to Nathan McKinnon and vice versa.
Too.
Right. So even if Miko's numbers did take a small dip, I agree with you, JJ. Like, I think he's an elite player. I think he's going to produce at a very high rate in Dallas. I think there's plenty of skill and talent around him there that he's going to kind of get to be complimented in that. Where I guess I am curious is those stretches where we have seen Miko Rantanen not even disappear, but maybe the engagement not be where you want it. Well, he found a way to thrive even in those moments playing in the Jared Bednar Colorado Avalanche system. That's the part of the game that I will be curious to see how it does translate for when he goes through those lulls that we know Miko can go through. Does he still have that, he played like shit, 3 points? Does he still have that type of effect, or are those the nights where he really feels the squeeze of production?
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think he's elite, and I think anybody who's trying to say that Miko is just a product of Nathan McKinnon has not watched enough Miko Rantanen.
Is circling back to what we were saying about Jared Bednar and his systems. Miko Rantanen, for the last 8 years that he's been in the league, has been just drilled into his mind how much effort he has to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Now jumping to a new team, you saw it at Four Nations. The very first shift Nathan McKinnon took, he went into the corner and just bodied someone behind the net. And I'm like, that's Jared Bednar style hockey right there.
Yeah.
When everybody else wasn't necessarily playing to that mindset.
Especially not a skill player like Nate.
Exactly. You got to go into the corner. You got to hit. How much do we hear Jared Bednar talking about hits?
Yeah.
So that's what Nathan McKinnon does first shift and says, I'm going to go make Jared Bednar proud right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Jared Bednar was sitting there maybe on his John Deere, drinking himself a whiskey, watching that game, saying, oh, I should be coaching at least an assistant here. But great play, Nate. I think having that so ingrained in Miko Rantanen's mind, I think he's going to carry that to other teams, Carolina and Dallas, and impress and be like, wow, this guy's really got a motor to go along with his skill.
He's the best player there. Like that like I said, that's the one thing that's the only thing that I really do think is a major difference is he's the best player on that team for me. No questions asked. He might even be a future captain there. I don't know. Jamie Benn, we'll see if he's even back in Dallas next year, pending UFA. But I did find it a little bit funny, and I guess kind of weirdly poetic that Miko Rantanen's first goal with the Stars was on a cross-ice Matt Duchene feed in garbage time because they were down 5-1. I was like, classic Matt Duchene.
Yeah, I remember covering Matt Duchene when he was still with Colorado, and him and Miko Rantanen got along.
Yeah.
Miko Rantanen was far from the reason that Matt Duchene wanted out of here. So I was happy for Matt Duchene because, he was giddy to get a guy like Miko.
Totally.
And I'm sure Miko was like, yeah, cool. Matt Duchene, I get to go at least be with somebody I'm familiar with.
Duchene is he'll be an interesting one to watch this summer because it was another just 1 year deal, $3 million. Let's say the Stars don't win at this. I think if the Stars win, he's going to kind of go do whatever. If the Stars don't win, it'll be really interesting to see if Matt Duchene takes coming off another 70+ point season, if he takes another discount to stay there. And this was something Elliot Friedman talked about in the 32 Thoughts trade deadline wrap-up pod, was like Dallas didn't want to go to 12. That apparently the whole trade almost broke down overnight because Dallas was like, we're not going to 12. And then at the 11th hour, okay, we'll go to 12. But he was making the point that like they didn't want to do it because they have a lot of contracts coming up in the next year or 2 years that they have to deal with. And even with the bump in cap, they're going to be really tight.
Sounds familiar.
Right. And so it's going to be interesting to see, part of what makes this Dallas team, I think, so dangerous is they've got guys like Matt Duchene playing for $3 million. Last year they had Joe Pavelski playing on a small contract. Like, okay, if Matt Duchene suddenly says, all right, I gave you 2 70-point years, 80-point years, making less than $3 million. It's time for me to get taken care of. How does that affect what they're able to do? How does that affect the depth, which has been so dangerous for them?
There's kind of the parallel there with Jonathan Drouin, wouldn't you say?
Totally. And I asked him about that a couple weeks ago, and he was like, look, it's no secret. I love it here. I love Colorado. I love Denver. My family loves it. We want to be here. My agent's taking care of it. It'll get taken care of.
We've heard that one before.
Right. I was like, okay, what's the date? Yeah. But no, I'm 100% with you. And I actually think, as much as this sucks, I love Jonathan Drouin as a person. With every game that he missed earlier this season, C-Mac was probably like $100 off, $100 off, $100 off. And, that probably stacked eventually to like, all right, we're down $500,000.
Well, it's also, okay, 2 seasons in, I think now we know who Jonathan Drouin is. He's a bit streaky. There's moments where he's popping off. There's moments where he disappears. There's moments where he can't play.
Yeah.
And that's been a pattern. The 2 years is a good enough sample size to know who he is. I think the Avalanche are going to probably come in a little bit lower than he would like.
Than he would have gotten last year for sure.
Yeah, that too. Will there be a deal done? Only time will tell.
He does seem like someone who prioritizes mental health and being somewhere you want to be.
You know what makes
the team's good?
You know what the biggest factor in mental health is?
Winning.
Money.
Oh, bro.
At least
so
for me.
true.
I know.
Yeah, no, so true. What was I don't remember which podcast I just heard this on. Winning is more fun than fun is fun. And if the Avs continue to win, that helps your mental health too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they can really stretch it, that's where guys are like, well, I'll take a little bit less if I can keep going that deep in the playoffs.
Right.
If I can keep getting that close to sniffing a Stanley Cup or even winning one, it's the reverse Kadri.
Yeah. Right. And honestly, it was part of the reason why I was a little surprised that Miko Rantanen was willing to sign an extension anywhere without testing free agency. If I was him, I would have just gone to the highest bidder this summer.
If I was him, I would have just stayed in Carolina, come back to Colorado in the summer.
See, I had heard that was possible. Right after it happened, that when the emotions were all still running high, I had heard that there was some murmurs of that.
Yeah, and that's how I thought it was going to play out. Maybe it was a little bit with my burgundy-colored glasses on, but it was obvious he wasn't happy in Carolina.
Yeah. Well, and you've seen the interviews that have come out since
Mhm,
then, right? How he
mhm.
day one, like, nope.
Yeah, hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it here. And then playing Rob Brindamore style, I mean, that doesn't suit his game
Lost
whatsoever.
almost 5 minutes a night worth of ice time.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I was holding on hope. It just, again, there's so much to the story that we don't know. We don't know if he left with a bitter taste in his mouth and some resentment. And then he was like, screw Colorado. I'm never going back there. I wanted to stay there, but they stabbed me in the back. Or if he was like, oh, I get it. They got a really great player out of it. I'm going to go back there and take the 11-7-5 that I was thinking about taking.
Boy,
anyway.
would that have been something if they somehow ended up with Netchis, Drury, and Rantanen out of all that. I don't know. If it were me, because it sounds like the Florida Panthers were interested. They just didn't have enough in a trade package to get it done. Yeah, I would have just been like, nah, I'll write it out here. Then I'll just go fucking play in Miami for the rest of my career.
Yep, you know me.
I know.
That's why I'm like Brad Marchand, my guy.
Yeah.
Because he was like, no, I want to go to Florida, make it happen.
Well, and isn't it crazy how the Florida Panthers have suddenly become a destination team?
Well, have you been there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, and that was always the argument of like players loved to play in, South Florida, in Tampa Bay, in Anaheim, but the teams always just sucked. Well, suddenly the two Florida teams are powerhouses, and now everyone wants to be there because not only do you have no state tax, not only do you have the amazing weather, but now you're a Stanley Cup contender every year.
Right. And you get the golf cart to practice.
Right.
I have a lot of excitement to see what that team looks like in the playoffs because they are playoff hockey built right now, right? With Kachuk, Marchand, even throwing AJ Greer in there.
Sam Bennett.
Oh gosh, I can't wait to see their style of playoff hockey.
And the best part is it's going to be them or another really good team that gets knocked out in the first round. I guess they're in the top spot right now, so they'll get a wild card team. But
absolutely stupid rules,
dude. I do hate that. From genuinely, if it's Avs Stars, I'm annoyed at whoever gets eliminated because these are two teams that have pushed chips to the middle, made big moves, adjusted their rosters to try to win a Stanley Cup, and one of them is going to be gone no matter what. And I just hate that.
Agreed.
It drives me crazy.
From a financial standpoint, the NHL should say we want the semifinals to look more like Edmonton, Colorado, Dallas, Colorado.
Right.
Not what it was Dallas, Edmonton, wasn't it? So I guess we're not terribly off.
Well, but it's the fact that Vegas got eliminated around when the Avs got eliminated. It's like this is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason it shook out that way is because the West is so much better than the East these last couple of years.
Yeah, but even the Canucks went deeper than they should have.
We got a super chat. What's
happening?
Vaguely sober, back in the chat. Excited to see JJ.
It's
new. A party. It is new. This is super chat lights.
That was cool. That was fun. I thought Michael Jordan was about to walk in.
That's how we know. Well, we have different lights for when Michael Jordan walks in.
Well, thanks for the super chat, Vaguely Sober. One guy I definitely miss interacting with. Any good interactions? I mean, I miss the people more than I miss any other part of doing this job. Wanted to see if anything good came in. Man, it was active.
There?
It was active.
Slow. A lot in the chat. We got 1,100 of you in here hanging out right now. Got JJ Jerez back in the Gorilla Sports Studios. It's been a fun conversation. We got Avs Flames here tonight. What did I see something about Hellebuck there? Up. Oh yeah, this one too. If Hellebuck wins, he deserves it. That one right there. The only player I wouldn't have a problem with winning the Hart over Nate is Hellebuck. So right now, while Nate came out, we talked about it earlier in the NHL.com voting as the clear favorite for Hart. Right now, the odds makers have him at third behind Leon Draisaitl, who's the favorite, which I do find a little bit interesting. Who's the favorite? Connor Hellebuck second. And then Nathan McKinnon at plus 450. I think I might get in on that action on plus 450.
Yeah, I agree. It's all fair. I feel like voters probably have a little bit of a glitch in their mind where they're like, oh, well, he's getting the Vezina. Does he really need to get the Hart too? He deserves a nod. I'm not saying he doesn't. But as far as making an impact night after night, goalies get to rest sometimes. That's what's been most impressive about Nathan McKinnon these last few years is his durability. He doesn't miss games. You can count on him playing whatever magical routine that everybody keeps referencing and everything he's doing off ice. I can't wait till he retires and we hear what that actually is, because I'm tired of everybody's like secrecy around it. Oh, it's about what he's doing. That's all I'll get into. But what he does off ice is like, what is he doing off ice?
Well, and the best part is when someone asks him about it, I'm not going to talk about it.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give you that.
Yeah. He's like, these are my secrets.
Yeah.
If I tell you, then the rest of the NHL is going to be as good as me. No, it's not, Nate. Come on.
And what's so funny is, like what we talked about off the top, he does keep getting better. So I don't know. Maybe he does have some like magic beans fucking soup recipe that he's making.
Well, hopefully he didn't get it from Val.
I think it would be interesting to see Connor Hellebuck be in that conversation. I think he's had a really special year.
If four nations, well, Canada won, so they probably have no regrets. But had they built that roster a little bit later, you feel Mackenzie Blackwood would have gotten a little bit more of a look?
I actually, after that first the first Canada USA game, I was like, I'll bet you they'd redo all three goalies if they could. They'd probably take Blackwood, Logan Thompson, and Darcy Kemper.
Here's one thing. Since I've been gone for so long, I haven't been able to give my opinion on Mackenzie Blackwood.
This is how I was going to wind down the show.
He's freaking amazing. That's no secret. We've seen it. We've seen the turnaround he's been able to accomplish here in Colorado. We see how much better and how much more confidence the fans have in him, the players have in him. But he's such a unique style of goaltender because we've talked about it. In recent years, goaltending has changed to be less about athleticism and more about size and positioning. Mackenzie Blackwood has size. He has amazing positioning.
He's fantastic.
If he has to fall back on it, he has amazing athleticism too. He's got the full package. And that's why I think Mackenzie Blackwood, for my money, I'll go top 5. I was going to say top 3, but at risk of getting my head bit off, I think he's definitely a top 5 goaltender in the NHL just because of that. He's such a sound goalie. He's so positionally sound. He's like Hellebuck, where like he's waiting for your shot before you're even thinking about shooting it. He knows what you want to do. If he has to fall back on those athletic plays, the scurrying, can't find the rebound, and he makes those saves, he can fall back on those perfectly.
He seems so positionally sound, and his movements are so sharp. He's not, you and I would always talk about Justus Annunen, and I feel like he would over push all the time, and he'd be going, the puck would be going left to right, and he'd almost kind of like overshoot that post, and he'd have to like reach back and stop himself and like pull. Mackenzie Blackwood is just he's sharp. He's movement here, there, back, over.
Justus Annunen had the size and the positioning. The athleticism is where he lacked. Alexander Georgiev had the positioning.
Oh, I'd say the athleticism.
And the athleticism. The size is where he lacked. Mackenzie Blackwood's the full package. I'm so happy the Avalanche locked him up and they said, wow, we found
we're not messing around.
Yeah, we're not messing around. We're not even getting close to letting this guy go anywhere else. He's going to stay here for the rest of his career. And that is one of the best moves of the season.
Yeah, no, that's one that, depending on where this goes here in the last 16 games into the playoffs, that, and honestly, the Scott Wedgwood trade a couple weeks before are going to look like the turning points in this season. Wedgwood, who's also been great in his own right in a backup role.
And we talked about the importance of having some fun guys in the room. I haven't gotten to meet any of those guys in the last 4.5 months because I haven't been in the room in that long. But man, they seem like bright spots in the team, where definitely in the years past, that was more of the negative energy coming out of this corner.
Yeah.
Whether it was Georgiev or even Varley, Grubauer could be quite the grouch.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Bernier, hands down my least favorite goalie, personality-wise, that we've ever had.
You know who was at the last couple home games? Frankie.
Yeah?
Yep. Great to see him.
Yeah.
Chatted with him real briefly, but it was good to see him.
He wasn't.
No tie around his forehead.
Okay.
No, so you know what's funny about that too, what you're just saying about them in the locker room, the two slowest undressers out of their gear that I've seen in the NHL, Blackwood and Wedgwood. And they just sit there and ham it up with us, with other players coming in the room, with each other, Donnie, Brendan, and they just sit there looking hilarious because they've got their big pants on, no leg pads. And they just sit there. And that was the other thing that, again, I never once got the impression that Alexander Georgiev and Jussi Sandin didn't like each other. Not once. I think they were friends. I think they talked and they were goalies. But they just kind of did their own thing. They just kind of went about their business, you know? And it's just noticeably different.
Right. I think I texted you after the trade, and I was like, did you notice how Alexander Georgiev only thanked the fans?
Yep.
He didn't thank his teammates. He didn't thank the organization. So I think eventually, we've heard the story of him punching a teammate. Like, I think Alexander Georgiev maybe doesn't get along with his teammates as well as you'd like to, as well as you'd like him to.
Here's the only knock on Mackenzie Blackwood that I can find. He is terrible in shootouts. But you know what? No shootouts in the playoffs. Who gives a shoot?
Hey.
Who gives a shoot?
Who gives a shootout? And what took him so long to get some Avalanche colored pads? Come on. You know why?
Yeah, I do.
What?
He's really particular about how they break in. He had them for months. He had them probably within about a week of him getting here. But he wouldn't even use them in practice for a while. He was going through like a breaking in phase with him.
That makes sense too, because I think he got his legs and his blocker and was still using the teal glove.
And then
that's the toughest one to break in out of all the equipment.
And then if you noticed, he actually got a new set of Avs leg pads recently. So for like 2 games, he went back to the teal stuff, and now he's in his Avs stuff full time. But he had them pretty quick. But yeah, I talked to him all about it. I'll tell you the whole thing here when we're done. He's got a long break-in process.
Oh, it's nice if a player's willing to talk about their gear with you.
Yes. I've learned a lot about goalie gear.
Well, it's something you and I are genuinely curious and fascinated by.
Well, and so when I first went up to talk to him, I was there with both Megan and Mark that day. So I was like, yeah, you guys, I'm going to go talk to him. I told him, I said, hey, look, you don't have to chat with me about any of this, but I love gear. I just like talking about gear. Do you mind if I just ask you a couple things? And he's an awesome dude. And he was like, yeah, sure, blah, blah, blah. And, goalies are gear nerds too. Like, they want to talk about that stuff. And so, yeah, we just kind of started going on it and had a great conversation with both of them about goalie interference and all kinds of stuff. So, no, they've been great.
Yeah.
Got anything else, JJ?
No, I think that's a lot of that is just stuff I've been keeping inside for the last 4.5 months. It's nice to finally get it out there in public and share my thoughts again. Because again, it just felt so weird at first when I took a break, and it was like, whoa, like everything I've done for the last 11 years, I'm just not doing right now. So no, it's nice to.
Well, but it sounds like you've been busy. Good things happening at home, and the other job and all that stuff, and real estate and all that. So I'm glad that you've been able to get all that taken care of, but we miss you like crazy around here. And hopefully we're going to be able to get you back in here a little bit more frequently now the rest of the way.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
I hope so.
We will see. Well, that's going to do it for today, Friday edition. Megan and I will have a live post game for you coming tonight. We'll be at home. Megan's feeling a little bit under the weather still, so we'll just take tonight from home. But we will have you guys covered after the game. It's a big one for the Avs. They need all the points they can get. JJ, I loved this so much. Too. We'll be chatting more soon. He's JJ Jerez. I'm Jesse Montano. We got Chloe behind the glass today. Make sure you guys check out the newest episode, Pucks and Prosecco, that came out earlier this week with Altitude Rinkside reporter Rachel Toss making a visit to the Gorilla Sports Studios. Great conversation with her. Thanks so much. Stay warm, stay safe. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you tonight. See ya.